welcome back to Boys Bible Study. I am here. My name is Ash. With me today are the other boys.
Scott.
This is Julian, live from the car in the garage.
Yes, Julian's in his isolated car recording studio, and our
my containment chamber.
And our special guest today is director and producer Suki Rose, our good friend Suki Rose. Welcome. Thanks for coming on the show today.
Thank you so much for inviting me on the show today. I'm very excited.
Yeah, our pleasure. It's nice to have you on watching this film. But before we got into it, I was hoping you would talk about your current project, Remote Viewing Cinema, and anything else you wanted people to know who might be listening to this.
So I am working on a project right now called Remote Viewing Cinema, which I am doing with my friend KJ Relth, who works with the UCLA Film and Television Archive. And we're basically just curating double features every day that are from easily accessible streaming sources. Mostly we're trying to have an emphasis on free streaming sources, but things that are easy to access for most people, such as like Netflix and Amazon Prime. And we program double features and do little intros, and it's all on Instagram. You can follow us on Instagram at Remote Viewing Cinema.
I love it. Your curation is so interesting and spot on. I don't know. I think that there's some really, really intriguing pairings and stuff that you've been doing, and it's really cool. I don't know. It's a project very fit for the current state of affairs.
Thank you. We're having a good time. Basically, anytime I come up with a pairing of a movie that makes me laugh, and that would be difficult to program in the real world, where you have to deal with like clearances and rights and how to get a print of something. I'm just like, oh, I don't have to do that. I can just pick two things, and it's great.
Yeah, Suki's our longtime friend in the film scene out here. We've watched many things together over the years, and this was a really fun shared experience to have you on watching Christian movies with us. We tend to always ask our guests about their own personal like religious upbringing and what they brought from that to watching the films with us. Would you be interested in talking about like how you grew up and stuff like that?
I would love to talk about that. So, I'm very Jewish. I went to Jewish day school. I grew up in a household that kept kosher, separate sets of dishes. Definitely Jewish identity is like the main driving force through all parts of your life. And so I don't know that much about Christianity. I'll say currently, like I'm not not necessarily a practicing Jew. I'm married to a non-Jewish person. So all of my experiences with Christianity have been me just being like, what's the deal with this thing? And then maybe a little bit like, oh, we have that. Half of Christianity is built on Judaism, as far as I understand,
right? Well,
which is very limited.
I said this before we watched the movie, but to me, Christianity is like, you know that woman who painted the very strange, like she updated the old fresco she found in her church, this like historical piece of art, and painted this like very strange human face on it. I feel like that's what Christians did with Judaism. Like we found this thing and we were like, oh yeah, let's make it our own, okay? And we turned it into something very strange and twisted over the years. But
that's honestly such a good analogy. And I've always been like, that's my perception of what's happening, but yeah. I don't know if that's like warped because the angle I'm coming at it.
We walked up to you guys and we were like, nice monotheistic religion you have going there. Wouldn't it be a shame if something were to happen to it?
The Jews walked through the desert so that the Christians could run through all of Western civilization.
Wait, is it like when there was only one set of footprints on the beach, that's when the Jews were carrying the Christians?
Yeah.
This movie really took that allegory up a notch and made it a cursed book altogether. Like not just painting over, but turning it into a curse.
Yes. This movie really took the totemic object of the Bible, seen by many in the Christian faith to be like a comforting, and spiritual object, but this really put a dark spin on it unintentionally. And folks, gentle listeners, if you think you know the Bible, after you watch this film, you're gonna think again. You're gonna have a slightly different perception. So let's talk about the film that we had Suki watch with us today. This is called The Good Book. How did you end up finding this one, Scott? Were you just trawling around?
Yeah, I was just looking through Tubi. Actually, one thing that I've noticed from remote viewing cinema, Suki, is just how wide the options really are on Tubi. And there's a lot of faith-based options, among other things. And yeah, just looking up Christian movies on Tubi. This is one of them.
Tubi is, like, I did not know that much about Tubi before the global pandemic, which has us all inside. And Tubi is incredible. I think everybody should check out Tubi. I came across it mostly because they carry a lot of American Genre Film Archive, AGFA. A lot of their titles are on Tubi.
Yeah.
And so that's how I found out about it. Shout out to AGFA. They have great movies that are not faith-based, but they're great. And since then, I'm just like, dang, Tubi has so much stuff, like weird, hard to find, and in this case, faith-based films. Like, if you weren't on Tubi, where are you?
That's wild. So The Good Book, four-walled Tubi.
In the future, post-pandemic, in order to qualify your film for an Academy Award, it has to be streaming on Tubi for at least 2 weeks. But let's talk a little bit about the people behind this film and how this film got made. Anything we might know about that from our research before we started watching.
Sharon Wilharn is the director, or Wilharm, actually. And her husband was the producer and editor and colorist and DP.
Yeah, there's a Brittany Wilharm credited doing a couple things. Brittany Wilharm did the titles, notably. She was in charge of the titles for the films, which was, I will say, one of the first things that we appreciated about the film. The title sequence was really hot.
We got great fonts going on.
Yes.
Great fonts.
Oh, wow, absolutely. The Christians really know their fonts, I will say.
Do they? I believe you.
They have a great command of the Microsoft Word 97 palette, you know? And it's...
What else do you need, really?
No,
you don't
absolutely.
need anything else. I also think it's important to note that the director, Sharon, was also the costume designer.
Yeah.
Which explains to me several things about the look of the film.
Everything in this movie is very clean. There's like a lot of people who have fallen on hard times in this movie, yet all of their clothes are like spotless and ironed and
pressed. Everything is pressed.
Yeah, some of the cleanest homeless people you will ever see. So families doing stuff is like a big theme. Once you start really digging into the Christian movie genre. What are some other films that we watched for the pod that are like made by families? I believe was, if I'm not mistaken, that was like a husband and wife team.
There's those two brothers who did like Fireproof.
The Cristianos.
There's another set of brothers. Yeah, the Cristianos are the classic. I think they're the original Christian brothers.
The first ones.
And
aren't the original Christian brothers Jesus?
Jesus and his brother Jesus too.
No one talks about Jesus too. Jesus too had to be sued for copyright infringement because he was going around.
It's like Gallagher.
Yes, the Gallagher effect.
He was franchised when Jesus franchised.
Fireproof. It says, the Kendricks.
Yeah, the Kendrick brothers.
Yeah, Fireproof is by Alex and Stephen Kendrick.
And Kendrick Lamar.
Yeah.
And we're definitely going to have to get more into the Kendrick brothers in the future because they've made a lot of good movies.
Really?
I think they're the power couple.
Really? The power
They definitely have the cursed Bible now.
Oh, okay.
It's in their clutches.
Yeah.
And they've reverse engineered it.
Yeah, so we have a family team. We also have another trope of Christian films and just like lower budget auteur films in general is the trope of the person who's just like, you know what, I'm going to do everything myself. This is my project.
The auteur.
And that usually ends up like, well, you know, because you were saying, Suki, something that I agreed with, which is like there are aspects of the Good Book that were like very competent in ways, but there was something still like off about it in general.
Yeah. It's shot, I don't know what, we were chatting about this earlier. I don't know what camera they shot this on, but it's not a cheap or bad camera. It's competent filmmaking technically, but it still still looks wrong. I don't know. Like, you can't. Yeah. The choices made in the color pass on this are like wild. Totally, like it looks like mud.
Bronze.
But I also like I don't want to like shit on another director. It's just a choice. Like a choice was made in the color. And then once we found out that the colorist is also the producer, who's also the husband of Sharon, that made a little more sense. And I definitely can see they were going for like an old-timey look, since this is, and I don't know if we've said this yet, this is a silent film.
Yes, we did not mention that yet.
So this is a silent film.
They should have just added the film grain effect or whatever the like iMovie filter that puts like the little film lines and stuff.
Scratches. Like that's what you want when you shoot a film. You're like, how do we fuck this thing up?
I wouldn't have minded a plunky piano throughout. We did not get that. Instead, we just got consistent bed music. Like it's all from the cheapest licensing library, like they went Extreme Music Library or whatever.
They went through the Killer Tracks library, and they used songs with titles like "The Open Road."
Yes.
You know?
I just looked it up, and it says it was composed by a guy named Rick Holitz.
Wait, really?
Uh-oh. Sorry, Rick.
Yeah.
Okay, well, you know what? This
maybe
king,
he makes stock music for a living.
You know why I thought that this was pieced together is because there were so many different genres of music in this
and
movie.
None of them fit what was going on.
Right. But now, now I'm saying we stand a versatile king. I mean, we're talking about a guy who can go from country to cinematic.
You guys, he composed the music for a film called My Grandpa Detective.
Wait.
Oh, I think I've seen that.
Have we watched that?
Or did we watch the trailer? That's another Christian movie, I think.
It's really hard to tell what these things, because they pierce your consciousness, and
sounds like we got some real Rick Holitz heads over here.
Oh yeah, we got some Holitz heads. Hey, everyone out there listening, if you're a Holitz head, just know you're in good company. Okay, this is where Holitz heads come to kind of nerd out with each other. So.
And two movies he did right before The Good Book were called A Love That Hurts and Pain of Death. I see how he got the role to do the score for a movie about a cursed book.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure other stuff related to, production that we noticed will come up as we're discussing the film, but let us do our best to or to show everyone listening at home what went on in this movie. The challenge is that there was no dialogue. So this movie was entirely told through visual storytelling. We don't always know the names of everyone, but we do know some. And we are going to attempt to take you through this very ambitious storyline where many characters are all united by interacting with a book that brings them intense pain and suffering.
Constant tragedy.
Yeah.
This is definitely the most anti-Christian movie that we've watched.
Yeah, I didn't feel like I was being preached to at all. I just felt like I was being warned to not get involved with Christianity. Because it's cursed in that book. It's not so good.
Really tough sell. It's like trying to sell a haunted house.
Yeah, we almost immediately start with a boy. How old do you think he is? Like 12?
Yeah, that sounds right.
And he gets out of bed after he's been put to bed by his parents to light one single candle, even though they clearly have electricity and probably a flashlight. and read, I don't know, one paragraph of the Bible, one part of a chapter.
The second he took out those matches to light that candle, to read that Bible, you knew.
Yep.
You knew he was going to burn that house down.
Also, the 30-second slow motion shot of the burnt out match going into the trash can.
Yeah. A little bit of foreshadowing. He's reading the book of Daniel in the Bible. You may know Daniel as the one who famously was survived
wearing white Vans.
He survived being thrown into a lion's den. Although it's unclear if that actually plays into the rest of the story, but it just happens to be what he's reading. But yeah,
I thought it was going to, but it really didn't.
No, it really didn't. It just kind of glazed over that.
It did make me think about Joe Exotic, though, who's very topical right now.
Yeah. A lot of big cats. Everyone's really into big cats right now in the zeitgeist. So, I mean, we should, I think that the Book of Daniel would be a great way to mission to Joe Exotic fans, if you think about it. We as a boys Bible study host should always be thinking about how we can use culture to bring people into the fold. And I think we have a new strategy right there. But he wakes up in the middle of the night. He and all his family wake up in the middle of the night. The house is in flames. They're leaving the house, obviously scared, but they all survive. And as they're walking through the smoky living room, the boy stops for a moment and looks at the origin place of the fire. And you can see in his eyes that he knows what happened and he's pissed. So this part,
he books it.
This part was
they're delivering the spaghetti, and he books it.
Yes, these brave men in hats and a red truck come, and they unroll a giant piece of spaghetti. They're rolling it off the truck, and they just push one by one this giant piece of spaghetti into the house. I think it's very brave that Italians are ready at a moment's
notice. Water's boiling somewhere in there.
Yeah, where there's smoke, there's fire, and where there's fire, the water's boiling.
Yeah. It's sad when every time a house burns down, you always see gangs of roving Italians trying to cook their pasta over the open fire. So wait, when does the boy run away? Do we see that? I was actually quite confused by that.
It's when he just dips when everybody's looking at the fire, I guess.
He books it, and then he steals overalls from a clothing line. And I wanted to know if anybody else had any thoughts. Yeah, he steals an old man's overalls as to why. Was it just so we could have the physical comedy of the old man hopping a fence to chase him in slow motion? Is my question.
That was a very strange scene.
Slowly rolling over the fence.
It was like this weird montage of folksy homelessness.
And then he stole a bunch of cookies too.
Yeah,
he stole one cookie and it ruined that whole.
Where does the Bible stand on
picnic.
cookie theft?
Not good. Not good.
Not good. Okay.
If anyone listening to this has taken a cookie before, you better put it back, or you have some explaining to do. That's all I'll say. But what we're referring to, yes, is that after the boy goes on the run, he sort of enters into this folksy youth, hobo, Mark Twain, Huckleberry Finn style homelessness scenario, and he settles in with a gang of. When I say hobos, I'm not meaning a synonym for homeless people. I mean literally like literary descriptions of what train track hobos look like.
Like a bindle,
yes.
Like a bandana
bindle wearing motherfuckers.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We described it earlier as a anarchist commune because it seemed pretty well maintained for being a homeless camp out in the middle of nowhere. Right. It seemed like a pretty well functioning society.
Yeah. Everyone seemed reasonably happy. Everyone, the hygiene was impeccable. Clothes were clean.
It was a very, very pretty piece of land they were on.
Yeah.
Right.
It's the doctor is held in the same regard as the cobbler.
Yes.
And there's no such thing as elitism.
Yes. And this is why, because, any leftist movement will, of course, face interference from the powers that be. So this is why the homeless encampment is beset upon by various missionaries bringing food and supplies to the hobos, yet also making sure that everyone has a copy of a little Bible. So some clean-cut missionaries come, youth missionaries, and they're all wearing like blue shirts, and they hand the hobos little Bibles, and they shake their hands to say, I notice you. You are a human. And
it's very deliberate handshaking, too.
Oh, yeah.
It's really deliberate handshaking.
Oh, yeah.
Which we're not used to anymore.
No.
Never again.
Yeah.
I get sick at the thought of it.
Actually not like I was surprised how much while watching the movie I had moments being like, wow, they just like ate from the same bag of food. Like, can you imagine? Like, we've only been under quarantine for a couple weeks, and I'm already like, yeah.
I'm having that feeling no matter what I'm watching now.
Yep.
Every time somebody touches somebody or touches their face or eats something with their bare hands that visibly washing them first, I'm like recoiling.
Everybody's like the doctor, like the scene in Contagion where the doctor goes out to eat after they first discover the virus, and he's like noticing how like people are like feeding each other and like sneezing into their hands and then taking food off somebody else's plate.
This is just part of our new collective trauma now.
Oh, yeah.
Like, it's just...
Yeah, we're going to be doing
I guess we'll just glaze
forever.
over that and keep talking about this Christian movie we're talking about.
Yeah.
But wait, what happens after this part gets a little muddy for me? What happens after the missionaries hand out Bibles?
Well, one of them gives a specific Bible to the boy who ran away from home.
And she writes like a little note being like, God loves you, and so do I.
And so do I.
Which is like a huge commitment for an 11-year-old to give to like a,
Another
Huck Finn. Yeah, another, yeah.
Right.
But then a group of like bad kids show up, but nothing tells you that they're bad kids other than the shift in the music cue. Like they just like look like kids.
Right.
And forgive me if I'm glossing over a detail here, but then they just stab one of these guys at the encampment, right?
They try to play monkey in the middle with the Bible.
Right.
That the kid was given, which is like the homeless guy who takes him under his wing wrote his name in, which was Esau. He writes that in there, and then the next scene, these kids show up and they're trying to play monkey in the middle with the Bible, but one kid tosses it to the other bad kid, and then it's very, very quick, but the kid just immediately drops it on the ground. And then Esau comes over and tries to break it up, and they just stab him.
Yeah, it escalates really quickly. One thing I wanted to point out is, the homeless man's name is Esau, which, again, is a biblical allusion, but this will happen many times during this film where it's like biblical concepts are brought out like they could be teased into something, but nothing's really done with it. Like, there's nothing. I mean, first of all, there's no dialogue, but also, like, there's nothing about this homeless man that has to do with like the story of Esau and Jacob from the Bible.
Let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering this when we're watching the movie. I'm also wondering about like, oftentimes you'll see a character reading a Bible passage that, to me, having no context, I'm having a difficult time connecting that with what's happening around us.
Yeah.
With one exception coming up, I was like, okay, I can understand what that means. But like, when you are watching the movie, are you able to make connections between what the passages that we're seeing on screen and what's actually happening, or are we just sort of free falling here?
In this case, a lot of them seemed really random.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't really think that the use of biblical allusions was like super thoughtful in this movie. Like, a lot of the verses that they showed were like pretty famous ones. Like, there's the one, I can't remember what book it's from, but it says like, God is my refuge and my strength, and like
that's the only one I was thinking of where I was like, I could see how that makes sense here, but they all did seem very general.
Wait, that one came up after the baby died, right?
Right.
Sorry,
yes, spoiler alert, Scott.
But I think throughout the movie they tended to use these like sort of famous like general verses that were about God's love. It wasn't like super. I don't know. I could have written this movie higher. Listen, the Will Harms or whoever directed this movie.
You could have written a better movie than this movie.
I could have at least punched up the script a little bit. Bring on the Boys Bible Boys as a consultant. But Yeah, so there's a stabbing, and then it's funny because literally a cop comes out from the bushes and watches this kid stab a homeless man and like watches the man die. But then the other kid, like the main, the kid we saw burn down the house and run away, he like sees what happens to his friend who's now lying dead on the ground. He sees the knife by him. He walks over and picks up the knife and is looking at it. And there's a cop that's been watching this whole scene, but somehow the cop like thinks that he did the murder. Very, very strange. I don't know, because like the way it was filmed, like we just clearly see the cop watch the other kid stab him.
It instantly, yeah, okay, so this kid gets arrested in his oversized overalls and is dragged down to the police station where he's being interrogated.
Yeah.
Big twist then is that, okay, wait. There's a lot going on in this sequence,
yes,
guys.
there is. There's quite a lot going on.
Okay, so first of all, the cop who is interrogating the kid is like walking around in the hallway doing what I would call a razzafraga, because he's just like walking around being like, I don't know what to do with this kid.
Yeah.
What's going on here?
Yeah.
And in the background, there's a big missing poster with the kid's face on it, along with several other fun posters. And also a poster that says that the guy who was stabbed is recovering in the hospital, just so we don't worry about him.
Oh, I didn't notice that.
Yeah.
Yes.
I thought he died.
No, he's recovering in the hospital.
That's funny. I'm glad that they like posted that up.
It's a small town.
I'm glad they felt the need to tie up that loose end. They were just like, oh, we can't let people think that guy died.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, Esau, everyone's favorite hobo
Everyone
from the movie
loves
The Good
Esau.
Book.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, this guy is like walking around the hallway, and another kid comes in. And at first, we're all like, who's this kid? We've never seen him before. But then he's like one of the kids who was with the gang of bad kids who was turning himself in for murder.
I thought it was murder, but no, it's just assault with a deadly weapon.
Right. How's the Bible feel about that?
I'm gonna say
A sin's a sin.
yeah, it's a binary thing. It's I would say that if it's a sin or not sin on the binary, I would call that a sin.
Okay. There's no gray area then.
Not a lot. Hell, it's either heaven or hell. There's not a lot of room.
See,
for
I
gray
guess
area
that's
here.
part of the thing. Like, to me, part of the allure within Judaism is that you can argue infinitely about where anything stands, and that's like part of engaging with Jewish culture is like thinking critically about it and arguing about it. Would you agree? Like, would you agree with me, Julian? Is that been?
Yeah, it's about the great debate.
Yeah, I like that.
Coke or Pepsi.
Yeah, that's interesting because, like, although certainly there will be people within Christianity, especially who like, people who study it or are very serious about it. I'm sure there's people who enjoy theological discussions, but like culturally, on just like a mass cultural level, I would say that it is not a system that cares too much with debate. It seems to be very black or white. It seems to be
Not
a
a lot
very
of
binary
nuance
system.
there, yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, that's what I'm
Yes.
trying to say.
It's not the great debate, it's the great curse, which is what this movie's
True,
about.
yes.
That's true.
This-
That's true.
Yeah, and so that's a good point that we should bring up, is that the Bible that the missionary, the young missionary, handed the young boy, who's now being interrogated in the police station, he carries it with him, and it gets kind of traded off like a baton among the different characters in this movie.
Like a cursed object.
Yes.
That is moving from victim to victim. Very obviously, there's like, we're not reading into this too much. It's literally anyone's hands who this book falls into. They suffer so greatly.
Yeah, Esau is touching the book for a minute, and he gets fucking stabbed.
Yeah.
And then
And then the cop who takes the Bible so basically the cop reunites the kid with his family because he sees him on the missing poster. They're reunited, and then within a moment, he gets a call that apparently that his partner has just had a child.
yes.
And so now he has the Bible and a new child who then dies
Yes.
in the middle of the night. And it's really grim.
Very grim.
It is so exploitative.
It is. It feels like bad. Like I was like, not that I felt betrayed by the movie because I didn't trust the movie in the first place to like not lead me down some like gonzo path, but like that's just, it was a cheap shot is what I'm going to say.
It was out of nowhere.
They introduced the baby just to have it killed within a minute.
Yep.
And the mother of this child literally wakes up in the middle of the night, like gasping, and then is like, oh shit, my baby died. Horrifying. Like they have a whole funeral. It's really not fun.
The dad thinks he can escape through basketball.
That was the funniest part of the movie, was like these two people walk by and the dad like waves at them and smiles, and the second they turn away, he just like starts bawling on the ground in this parking lot. It's it shouldn't be funny, but it is funny. It's funny. Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, but then, he somehow, for whatever reason, he found... one of the most baffling scenes, which took us a little while to figure out, was when the photographer delivered their picture of the baby.
Right. We should say that there is... So after the cop gets a call that his wife has had a baby, we see him running into the maternity ward, and he's holding the baby. And then the next scene is like, their new family. It's him and his partner and, I'm assuming wife, and they're getting their photo taken. Of like a family about town with a new baby. And also, if we weren't explicit about it, the boy who went missing, who the cop helped, gave the cop the little Bible that Esau was stabbed holding. And then this cop immediately loses his new baby. So again, this is another person who's just like basically gets struck by lightning the minute they touch this cursed fucking Bible. Then what you all were getting at was that later, like a couple scenes later, after we've totally forgotten about this tiny moment where they're getting their photo taken, the photographer just shows up at the couple's house that lost the baby and just shows them a photograph of their own baby. And the poor mother just like breaks down crying at her doorstep, and the photographer's like, "What'd I do?"
I didn't think the baby was that ugly.
Turns into like
they turned out pretty good.
It turns into like a Rodney Dangerfield like routine where it's like
everybody's a critic.
But then basically this couple is immediately adopting another baby from like a teen who had a baby. Like it felt very weird to me to just be.
Well, they bond over a Bible verse.
The husband and the wife?
Yeah, very quickly. Okay. There was that scene where he was reading the Bible and then he like ran away from the
and he didn't clean his dishes from the table.
And then she walked over and cleaned up and saw the Bible passage, and then he walked over and they hugged, and then like you're saying, very next scene they're signing adoption papers.
So the next phase in this movie is really interesting because, the path of this movie is as we meet a character, they get past the Bible and we start to see life from their shoes for a little bit. And so, this family now has a new baby. They give the Bible to the mother they adopted the baby from, but oddly enough, she drops the Bible and it is picked up by a character that we just like completely didn't expect, by this young homeless woman. If I had to guess, I would say she's like in her early 20s.
A lot of homelessness in this movie.
There is, and she's a different like vibe of homeless woman. She's not like the train tracks hobo. She's like,
she doesn't have community.
Right.
Like they had a community.
Right.
She's on her own.
Yeah, she's
real quick. When they gave the mom of the adopted baby the Bible, she was like completely ungrateful, wasn't she?
I actually kind of liked that because if
I
this
thought
movie,
she like threw it onto the ground.
She did. That's true.
If the movie had just been the Bible passing through like ready hands who were like open to what was going to happen,
right?
Like that would be a little, I don't know. But to see the Bible be handed to somebody and then them being like, no thanks, it felt more realistic to me.
Dodged a bullet.
Yeah,
she
seriously,
really
cursed Bible, murder Bible.
Could have literally dodged a bullet. Yeah, who knows?
Yes.
No, that's like
fucking gotten hit by a bus right after she took
Right.
the-
By this point,
Seriously.
by this point in the movie, we're now watching this movie as if we're watching a horror movie, and a character's like, "I'm going to check out that noise outside."
It's
like we're
essentially Final Destination.
right. We're basically watching this movie like, "Girl, drop the Bible. You do not need this in your life
Walk
right
away.
now. Drop the." And she
Prayer is
did.
coming from inside the house.
The call is coming from inside God's house. But yeah, no, she this young mother, she drops the Bible, and it is picked up by a very unlucky young homeless woman who reads it while she's walking around. She is, again, she's impeccably clean. She has clean clothes. Has sort of like a summer maid vibe, sort of a midsummer vibe. I liked her style. She had good
There's
style.
a little bit of a Diane Keaton vibe
Yes.
happening too, I'd say.
I would say
Yeah.
so too. Yeah,
She was the manic pixie dream hobo.
yes, which we compared to. Now, this isn't exactly a Christian film, but anyone listening to this podcast, we highly recommend you check out the film Beauty in the Broken. It's a contemporary film, I think, just from a couple years ago, but it is essentially about a man who falls immediately in love with a manic pixie dream homeless girl, and it's just a fantastic film. It goes crazy places, and I almost wondered if this film was going to do that too, but.
And especially if you like Christian movies just for their production values, this movie definitely has that.
Yes, Beauty and the Broken feels like a Christian genre film, even though it is secular. But but then this homeless woman, she becomes entranced by the word of the Lord, so much so that she actually checks out a local church, and she's curious enough to step inside.
So she goes into she goes into the church, and she is, I guess, kind of ignored at first because they pass the collection plate around. And they just skip over her, even though she offers what
penny?
little money she has.
She offers like a nickel, which I know that's supposed to be like seen as holy and stuff, but it's like,
I
just
think
keep
it
your
was
penny,
a penny.
girl. Anyway.
Was it Ben? Did you guys see if it was the penny from the movie The
From
Penny?
the movie The Penny? That would have been the most amazing crossover of all.
Guest starring role.
Loyal Boys Bible Study listeners will remember our episode on The Penny. This film follows a similar vibe to The Penny, but instead of a penny exchanging hands, it is a Bible. And yeah, as Julian was saying, she's ignored at first in the church, but then a very beautiful young woman in the choir takes a notice to her.
Yeah, the lady, the like pretty lady, which I think is like the movie presents it as like, this is a nice pretty lady.
Yeah.
The pretty
She
lady
looks like a Fox News anchor.
Yeah,
Yes.
and it was to the point where for a second I was like, is that the director of the movie?
Right.
Just because the way the movie was treating her, but it is not. But the lady, nice lady, takes the homeless woman home with her, and then to have dinner with her like shitbag husband, who, right? We all read that as shitbag husband.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And then basically just gets her a job. Am I correct there?
Yeah, it seems like she takes her in, feeds her, clothes her, gives her some good work clothes, and gets her like a job interview.
I think good work clothes is a stretch.
Right,
Where it's
right.
like
Yeah,
good work clothes.
He dresses
There's
her
a
like
lot of-
frumpy as
She was
hell.
already dressed fine.
Right.
All
Her
of the
style was
wardrobe-
great.
Yeah, all the wardrobe choices in this section of the movie are the most egregious of the whole movie.
Yes.
Or the most inspired. I don't know.
Right.
Frankly, I don't know anymore.
But I don't know. It's just, the director was also the costume designer, as you were saying before. And yeah, and also to what you were saying, Suki, I agree. Like, because again, this movie was completely silent, so we had to rely on the visual coding of the way characters were presented, the way they were dressed, made up, etc., to make our first impression about the character. And like, the beautiful blonde Fox News looking lady is, in every time the camera lands on her, she's always kind of like stoically, like, sort of lightly gently smiling, or sort of stoically, like resolutely looking forward. And you're just supposed to feel like this woman is a paragon of beauty and virtue. And like, I can see God's light in her eyes. Whereas her husband is like, he kind of looks a little shifty, and he has like a weird snake face, and like,
yeah, he's wearing a V-neck.
He's wearing a V-neck.
He's a bad guy.
Yes, we can tell he's a thought right away. Yeah, and then she's shown, again, our new protagonist, this beautiful blonde, we'll call her the beautiful blonde lady. She is shown successfully getting this homeless woman a job interview. But then at what point does she get mugged? Is that after the job interview, or is that just
I think it's okay. So the job interview happens, and then the now employed homeless woman and the pretty Fox News lady go to church together. And then when the pretty Fox News lady is leaving church, she gets mugged. So she has the Bible. That's how you know she has the Bible, is because something horrible happens to her.
Yeah, because the homeless lady gave her the Bible, right? Did we say that?
Oh, yeah.
And she wrote something in it too, just adding on to the curse, basically.
Right.
It's basically, the Bible is like, an autograph book that as a child you bring to Disneyland, and like all the characters sign their name.
Yeah, and then all the characters get like executed in various grisly ways. Like,
yeah, it's exactly like Disneyland, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, imagine if you brought your autograph book to Disneyland, and then all the costume characters you got to sign it were immediately beheaded on Splash Mountain.
Yeah,
that would basically be an equivalent to what happens in this movie. But actually, the homeless woman escapes unscathed, thank God. But
well, I mean, maybe that job is really horrible, and she's about to meet some really terrible fate with her employer.
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah, she gets into a terribly abusive work situation that happens after the film.
I don't know.
But it's extremely possible. But anyway, we start to now. Again, she gets mugged right outside a church, which is very funny, in broad daylight with many witnesses.
Yeah.
But then we get a new protagonist. This is at this point like the fourth or fifth completely new set of characters we meet within the scope of this hour-long movie. And we meet the young woman who has just mugged the blonde lady and taken her purse and Bible.
I also feel like they did a little bait and switch where it's like the mugger takes off the hood of the hoodie and is like, oh, it's a lady. It's a lady mugger.
Yeah.
We're subverting your expectations.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is a very feminist movie.
It is so feminist.
This female director.
Hashtag girl boss.
True,
Hashtag girl boss.
True, a lot of girl bosses in this film.
This teen mugger, she comes back to her house and is like, she walks by, a man passed out with a beer on a couch, which instantly tells you this is not a great living situation. And she goes through the purse and is like, Bible, what? Who cares? And then she goes through the wallet, and then she makes a peanut butter. And I know it sounds like I'm jumping the timeline. She makes a peanut butter sandwich for a boy I don't know who this boy was. And then the dad wakes up and is very angry. And the music is very chaotic. And the dad, yells at her and, knocks the peanut butter on the ground. And you just see, peanut butter jar bouncing on the ground. And then
he's a Nutella guy. For all we know, he's German.
Yeah, right.
And then the mom comes home. And she also makes a peanut butter sandwich.
Yes, she does.
But
Really
eats
fast,
it,
though.
with such vigor.
Yeah.
And it's like a one piece of bread, so it's really more like a peanut butter roll. She just sort of
peanut butter
squishes
quesadilla.
Yeah, there you go. And then she goes into her daughter's room and finds the purse and the wallet, and presumably is like, you need to return this. And then the teen returns the purse. She leaves it. Okay. She leaves it on the front the pretty lady's front porch. And it just says, wait, she left a note, right? What did the note say?
I think it just said sorry.
Said sorry. Okay, so the purse gets returned.
Yes.
And then, oh wait, no, this part's great.
Yeah. Yeah, well,
someone else take this part.
So many people just get fucked over in this movie for no reason.
so the lady mugger returns the purse to the blonde virtuous church lady. She immediately she sees the purse on her doorstep. She immediately drops down to her knees in a serene way and thanks God for the miracle that her purse and her valuables were returned. And she's so excited that she immediately runs to her husband's office and throws the door open. And what does she see? But
well, right before that, though, there's that great shot where she's going into the office. It's all one long take where she goes into the office entrance and then down the hallway, and she's looking at her mirror and doing her makeup touching it up as she's walking down the hallway.
Very strange. I'm not sure why she did that. Just to look nice for her husband,
Sorkin
I guess.
Walk and talk redone for
did Sorkin
the silent
do a
movie
anyway? But she does her makeup. She's walking down the hallway, and she throws the door open. And what does she see? But her husband, Stupping. Sorry, I'm just trying to make Suki and Julian feel.
I feel so comfortable. Thank you so much.
I feel seen.
I do. I feel seen too. Witnessed. Absolutely.
I'm bilingual.
Yeah.
Just so you know. But yeah.
Who knew that a little nosh of a peanut butter sandwich?
Yeah, your second language is shtick.
But she notices. She catches her husband Stupping. A buxom blonde at the office and just catches them in the act. And, she is incensed at this and she's so shocked and she walks out of the office and her husband walks out to follow her and he is putting one of his suspenders up, which is
he has leather braided suspenders. They're very funny. He's really pulling it up. He really hamming up that suspender pull up.
That's some Folsom street fair type shit. He's wearing a leather harness at all times. But
so she's upset and she goes to a diner.
Yeah, to clear her head.
How do we get out of the diner though?
The waitress tries to bring her a cup of water and the woman, the distraught woman, turns it down and leaves. And then, for whatever reason, we follow just from there, we follow the waitress to her mansion that she lives in.
Because if you remember, the blonde lady who's in her, fit of despair, she leaves that cursed red Bible that she recovered from her purse on the table. And she's crying. Yeah, she walks into a diner. She's crying. She sits down. She takes off her wedding ring. She continues to cry, and then she just gets up and leave, which is just I don't know, a really funny way to react, to interact with a restaurant space. But yeah,
yes,
everyone grieves in different ways.
It's true.
Hey, you guys remember restaurants?
Yes. Well, I was just thinking because even right before we were talking, I was just saying how I miss fucking going to a restaurant, spending my hard-earned $15 for someone to take good care of me. I'm usually stoned off my ass.
Having them feed you, fly the airplane into your mouth.
I miss that for sure.
I'm scrubbing back through right now, and nobody in the background has food. They're all just sitting at tables with one ketchup bottle and a salt.
That's
that's so good, Scott. I'm so glad you found that out.
It's so good. Oh, I love that about Christian films.
Beautiful production design.
Yeah.
Oh wait, the art director or the art department was the either daughter or sister of the
had to be
director. No, it is.
Oh,
so
it's so good.
Yeah,
I love that. Hey, they wear a lot of hats, but
some would say too many.
I would say that we should all try to wear one hat really well instead of all of the hats not so great.
I think so too. Or if you can do a couple different movies and try different things on each movie, but maybe just do one thing on the movie,
I also think it's good to know how to ask for help or to know where your weaknesses are as a filmmaker in general.
Yes.
It's good to know, I can't light the thing and design the costumes and figure out everything that's on the screen at the same time.
Yes.
I think it's good to know your limits.
I completely agree.
Yeah.
And this movie demonstrates that. But so the waitress ends up taking the Bible home, and like you were saying, Julian, one thing interesting about the next scene is we see her get home and she's interacting with what must be her two daughters in her kitchen, and like she, by all appearances of the movie, is like one of the most upper class characters in the film. Like she has a huge kitchen in a beautiful house, and her daughters are like dressed immaculately and are like running to this park with these like big baskets of like dress up. It just seems like they have a lot of nice things in the house, and she's somehow doing that on a waitress's salary. I don't know. Very, very interesting turn of events.
I could not remember at all how we got from the waitress to the next part until then. I was like, oh, you're right. Like the daughters go have a dress up picnic in a park.
Yes, and they bring the Bible with them. The cursed object, the bloodstained Bible, has been brought to the park in a first aid kit by the two young daughters, just like for their game of make believe or whatever they're going to play at the park. The daughters then decide to take the Bible in a first aid kit and throw it into the river.
Where all things go when we're done using them.
Right.
Where all our toys go when we're tired of them. Just throw it in the fucking ocean.
Yeah.
Well, that's why you got to cut the handles of your first aid kits so turtles don't choke on them.
Whenever you're trying to break the curse of a haunted Bible by throwing it into a tributary that leads to the ocean, make sure you cut the handles off your first aid kits. You don't want the turtles thinking there's Band-Aids in there and then getting stuck.
I do feel like oftentimes in horror films, when you're dealing with a cursed object, there's like several different ways that you're going to try to get rid of the object. And one of them would be burning, which we've already attempted in this movie. The beginning starts with a fire that does not burn that Bible.
Right.
And then, I think we all know that throwing a cursed object into the ocean is really just passing the buck down the line.
Yep.
Because somebody's going to fish that shit out of the ocean. And and then there's blood on your hands, frankly.
Here is where the action opens up and the movie gets a little more global. Who wants to talk about the path of the Bible from here?
Well, first of all, you see the first aid kit with the Bible and it go down the river, and that leads to seeing a bunch of people getting baptized in a mass baptism.
Who recovers the Bible from the ocean? Like, how does it get to the final international sequence?
One of the guys watching the baptisms just pulls it out of the ocean.
Yeah.
Just like, hey, a slimy first aid kit. I'm going to open this up. I wonder what is inside.
Ooh, Band-Aids.
He opens the first aid kit and sees the Bible, and then we cut to them like putting together care packages to send overseas. That care package gets sent to undisclosed ethnic location.
Yes. We can tell it's an ethnic location because
the bad places where there's no English and everybody's skin is darker.
Yes. And there's some vaguely exotic music being played on some sort of unidentified foreign, in scare quotes, string instrument. And
it's world music. This is where what's his name shows off his talent, the global scale of his abilities.
The composer, yeah, he's like the Paul Simon of Christian film. But
Rick Holitz.
Yes,
I wonder if Rick Holitz supports apartheid also.
Well, we're gonna have to next time when we get him on the pod, we'll ask him all of our listeners' burning questions.
Yeah, we'll get him on the pod.
Yeah, one day we're going to transition to starting to having the people who have taken part in these films. I think in the future I would really like to get interviews with some filmmakers and stuff. I would love to talk about their process. But
I guess I'm not good enough now.
Well, no,
well, once you make a Christian movie,
movie.
We'll have you back.
I mean, maybe all of my movies are Christian. They're not. I couldn't even take that joke all the way through. I was just like, they're not Christian.
Here's the thing, Suki, is, you are a director, and I think it's time for you to evaluate, like, how can I use the gifts that God has given me in order to glorify his name? And
it's the wrong tree, you
Okay.
know? It's sparking up the wrong tree.
Okay.
You know?
All right. Hey, listen, worth asking. Just think about it. That's all we're asking. So yeah, this youth group is sending care packages overseas. The man who finds the Bible in the ocean puts it in the care package and sends it abroad. And the next thing we see is like people having what appears to be like a covert Bible study in their home. And it is beset upon by, some kind of soldier, someone with a gun.
Yeah. Well, the Bible gets delivered. The Bible gets delivered to that, like secretly delivered to this like white guy who's just sitting in a dark, musty room by himself. And then we transition to him leading like the Bible study in that same room.
Yes. And
then, yeah.
And this is interesting because it's very similar to the film that the three of us, watched last week with our guest Lenny, and where there was also a movie about covert Bible studies happening, like under threat of police enforcement, like don't be caught praying in your home, which Christians love to imagine is the case for them. I mean, it's probably the case
now
in
it's
some
real.
places, right?
In Florida.
God.
We just want to say mad respect to Bible study hero, the preacher in Florida who is bravely continuing to hold church services in the face of the corona pandemic. Innocent of all charges. Free my mans. Anyway.
I can't even support
Free
the
my
joke.
man's whatever his name is.
Free my man's,
It's too
whatever his name
depressing.
is. I know. Probably gonna cut that, someone bring it home with the final really, really dramatic thing that happens after the Bible study.
The white guy in the musty room is leading the Bible study, of course. I'm sure he's American. I don't know why he didn't bring Bibles with him, but they got another one. And then there's a knock at the musty room door. Where is this?
We don't know. It's not revealed.
That information is classified.
It's not revealed.
All right. But it's clearly illegal. Soldiers burst in, round him up, guns pointing at him. They pick up the Bibles, all the Bibles, throw them in a pile in the alley. One guy lights a match. One of these soldiers, you can tell he's bad because of the look on his face.
Yeah.
Although I'm looking at it now, he's just wearing like a button-up shirt that's like camo colored.
He's wearing a
but,
camo
like, not with the
beret.
texture. It's just like green brownish shirt button-up with a beret, with a camo beret.
Yeah, we love a camo beret.
And he throws a match down, and instantly we all know how flammable Bibles are. Just a burst of flames up into his face.
Shoots a fucking fireball.
But not our cursed object Bible, which can't be burned,
Right?
as we've learned already.
Right.
Yeah.
The final.
Perfectly fine.
They execute the guy.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, they burn the Bibles and then they point the gun toward the man who was smuggling them, and the screen goes dark, and we know
Ice him.
this guy got fucking murked. And the final image of the
Come
movie.
at the king of the Jews, you best not miss.
They actually put him up against the wall to do it. It's like,
Yeah.
no,
No, it's real
he's
shit.
getting executed.
And then the final image of the movie is cuts to some undetermined time in the future. A youth is walking through like the ruins of that building, just because it's like it seems like the way they edit it makes it seem like someone's walking through the same place as the action we just saw, but there's no longer buildings there. And he's looking down at the ground and he notices the little red cursed Bible we've been following the whole film, and picks it up and is like, and takes it with him, which then implies that when the soldier was burning the stack of Bibles from before, once again, like you were saying, Scott, that Bible did not burn. It has withstanded at least 2 massive fires, and it is just ruining life. It might be out there to this day. Gentle listeners, beware a tiny red Bible. Hopefully the Bible you're using to follow along with this podcast is not a tiny red Bible, because I'm very, very concerned.
What should people do if it is a tiny red Bible? What if they have the cursed object?
That's a really good
Don't try to
question.
burn it.
Don't try to
Yeah,
burn
you
it,
can't
first
burn
of
it.
all.
Don't give it to anyone else.
Can they mail it to you?
Self-quarantine for 40 days and 40 nights.
Yeah, we should actually. Yeah, we should get a PO box for cursed Bible. Cursed Bible destruction services. Maybe we're some of the only people qualified to handle such powerful
You got to
objects.
charge top dollar for that. Top dollar.
Yeah, that's only the highest Patreon tiers will allow our
Put it in a
spiritual
lockbox and throw it into the ocean.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're gonna have to talk to Jim Baker about how to market this properly.
Yes.
Well, you got to get a bucket. That's all I know. You need a bucket.
Oh,
to
yeah.
Put the Bible in the bucket. Is that how you fix a cursed
A
object?
cursed Bible bucket. Yeah.
So that is the plot of The Good Book. There are some post-credits scenes that actually do have some dialogue, and it's mostly just people whose relation to the film is
Fucking
unknown.
rambling.
Just fucking
I
rambling
hated it.
about.
I hated it.
That part was very
It
tedious.
made no sense.
Yeah, it made no sense.
Those are
really made
bloopers.
no
They're not
sense.
supposed to talk. That's why it doesn't make sense.
The first elderly man who was talking was saying that he did mission work in Bulgaria and Romania and that he was involved in Bible smuggling. So now I do not know my world history, but what he seemed to be implying, and I have no reason to doubt him, was that it's like illegal to possess a Bible in those countries, and they had to like smuggle them in. We were entranced by this like beautiful silent film, and then just like listening to elderly people talk for several minutes after was just not what we wanted to hear. It was kind of like at the end of the Trump prophecy, when like the movie was 45 minutes long, and then the final half hour was just talking heads like Michelle Bachmann talking about how we need to respect Israel.
Well, this movie at least valued our time a lot more, so they put
did.
that part over the credits.
It's true.
Yeah, it was a lean movie. I appreciate its it was concise.
Let's talk about what are some final thoughts we have overall about any other things we want to say about the production or the themes of the movie. What are our final thoughts?
Well paced, moved along.
It did.
Yeah, it looked good at the beginning. Like it looked like somebody who like could direct like a commercial. But then by the end it was like a bottom of the barrel student film.
Right. Maybe it was one of those films that was like made chronologically, and then by the end they just kind of run out of steam. Yeah.
They run out of steam and money. Yeah.
Over the course of like 4 years, probably. Anytime you see a movie like this, it's like done over the course of like 10 years.
Yes. Although I will say this woman, Suki, you were looking her up before we started talking, and it seems like she's made a couple things.
She's won several awards from several Christian film festivals.
I'm sure.
She had another film that seemed to have done well on the festival circuit. This one seemed to have done decently on the Christian film festival circuit as well.
Suki, you're pretty familiar with film festivals, and have a number of friends and colleagues that are as well. Were you familiar with any of these film festivals listed?
Oh, not a single one, no. But my favorite one was called Glory Reels. Which I feel like sounds like vaguely sexual, which is why I like it.
Yes.
But it also made me like deeply curious about those festivals. And then, there's like a lot of festival, like, of course there's a lot of incredible film festivals all over the world that have like great reputations and are a great launching point for new talent, but there's also like a whole category of film festivals that are seriously just cash grabs for submission fees. And so I don't know about the reputations of these festivals, but I have a potentially unfair, but I have a sneaking suspicion that a lot of these festivals are cash grab festivals.
Yes.
Which also, you know what? This director seemed to have gotten what she needed out of those festivals, and maybe those festivals got what they needed out of this director, and maybe that is a fine situation, and I'm not one to judge.
Right.
But, she seems to be doing her thing. She has her little unit where she has like her husband, who's the producer and colorist, and they have they clearly have a crew that's functioning together as a group, and I can never fault that. I mean, I feel like they're doing exactly what they want to be doing. They're making the exact movies they want to make. They are saying exactly what they want to say, and they're doing it with the people who they're close with and who they want to be working with. And regardless of what I think of the end product, I mean, you know, making movies is like, it's incredible, and it's also torturous. And it's like, I don't know, if they're having a good time, you know, more power to them.
Yes.
You know, and frankly, they've warned me away from any life that crosses paths with the Bible. So I feel like I've gained a lot from the movie. Like, it's a cautionary tale. So I don't know. I don't know how many films you've watched, faith-based films that are directed by women. This is an unusual one, correct?
Yes, this might even be the first that we've watched for this pod. No, I was really pleasantly surprised to hear that when the film started. I didn't even know, and then you were talking about it. I was like, oh wow, we got a female director. I do think for this podcast, this is the first film by a female director we've gotten to review, and we're happy to do that. And to your point, Suki, I wanted to say, I mean, yeah, we are, you know, we're all film critics and cultural critics, and we all are also DIY filmmakers too. And I think that at the core of everything we talk about here is a respect for the process and a respect for anyone who's like going to put in the time and effort to make something. So there's just an appreciation from the get-go, but also, you know, I love talking about a film product and what I liked and what I hated about it and stuff like that. So I think any product is not above critique, but also what we're saying comes out of a place of love and support. I mean, if I met her or the filmmakers of any of the films we've reviewed, most films we have both positive and negative things to say. But if I met this woman, I would be like, oh my God, The Good Book. Love your work. So good. Talked about it on my podcast. Huge fan of your work. You know, I would be like overjoyed to talk with her about the making of this film. So that's how we feel about the filmmakers that we criticize over the course of this podcast.
I think that's a great angle to come at it with. I think I would struggle a little more with interacting with this person face to face.
Sure.
But I also feel like where I'm coming from, as a feminist, I think it's important that I'm not just like, every female filmmaker is incredible and I love her. I actually think that I enjoy engaging critically with this work, and I had a good time. And making movies is an impossible task, and every time you actually do it, it's like a fucking miracle. So good for them.
Yeah.
Yep. It's one of the most grandiose like mediums, like accessible to not necessarily the average person, but like let's say like the most grandiose like mass consumed contemporary medium, you know? And it's a huge aspirational task. Yeah, no, it's just to even execute a very simple idea is very aspirational. So yeah, we all we love it. We love it, folks.
Yeah.
All right, so we just watched The Good Book with our guest Suki Rose. Boys, Suki, what do we think? Was the book all that good? Was it in fact a bad book? What are our thoughts? What's our ratings of this film?
It was a cursed book, and I give it 6 out of 6 cursed Bible tragedies. A perfect score.
A perfect score. Yeah. Very haunted, but perfect.
I'll give it 3 out of 3 pairs of stolen overalls off the drying line.
Yeah. I'll give it 1 out of 9 purloined chocolate cookies at a picnic. That is, however, a perfect score because our young protagonist only took 1 cookie. So perfect film. Suki?
I give this movie, which is called Murder Bible, a 7 out of 7 braided leather suspenders.
Beautiful. Most films would not score that highly on the braided leather suspender matrix. So it's not every day you see a 7 suspender film. So well, Suki, thank you so much for watching this with us. It was a pleasure having you in the boys' room today. We really appreciate your time.
It was a joy and a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Remind everyone listening how they can check out your current projects.
So you can go ahead and follow at Remote Viewing Cinema on Instagram if you're interested in some streamable double features for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, it's a really fun thing to do while we're all locked up. Suki's curation is amazing, and there's just a lot of really good inspo for most of the films you're posting I had never heard of, and a lot of them sounded really fun and engaging. So I have a lot to check out soon. Boys Bible Study fans, please check them out. Some other quick plugs before we go. As you may have seen online, we recently started our Patreon, patreon.com/Boys Bible Study. If you pledge $5 or more per month, you'll get access to our bonus episodes and invitations to future live streams that we're planning to do, which will be really fun. Leave a review for us on Apple Podcasts. If you leave a review and have a movie suggestion for us, we'll definitely check it out. And we hope to engage with all movie recs in the future for our podcast if we can. And also our outro music is the song Oh My God by Mary. Stream Mary on Spotify and Bandcamp and all other sites where you can get music. Well, from us boys and our guest Suki, to everyone listening, we say peace be with you.
And also with you.
Yes.
Is that what you say?
Yes.
Forgive me, Father, for I have sinned. I feel your love in me, it's coming from within. Oh my God, my devotion is so unwavering. Divine emotions when you enter me. Every day